Terrific. I see the recording has started. Welcome to our regular board meeting of July 27th, 2023. President Seema Serafin is unable to be at today's meeting. I'm Vice President Joy Shui, and I will be presiding. I'm especially delighted to have the opportunity to preside over today's meeting, as it is Superintendent Kelly Aramaki's first official regular board meeting. Welcome, a very warm and enthusiastic welcome. We're excited to have you at the helm. Okay, with that, if we could project the agenda, please. Roll call.
Jane Arce. Christine Chu.
President Serafin cannot be here. I'm Joy Shui.
Carolyn Watson.
And Kelly Aramaki.
Yay, love seeing it.
Thank you.
Okay, with respect to item 1.2 of the agenda, we have the introduction. Welcome to our new staff member, Aaron Miller. I'll turn it over at this time to John Harrison to lead us through 1.2, 3, and 4 of our agenda.
Thank you, Vice President Shui. And with summer break, of course, usually we have students present at this point of the agenda, but without students, we've gone to staff. So scanning the room, there's Mr. Miller. Mr. Aaron Miller is the Chief of Schools, Secondary, new position for him. July 1st was his start date, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Aaron Miller to you. Aaron's going to lead the pledge, lead the acknowledgement, and then address the board with a few comments. Thank you, Vice President Shui.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Duwamish and Snoqualmie tribes. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. We reflect on the historic context that brings us to reside on this land and accept responsibility to interrupt erasure. We commit to an ongoing partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe as we listen to, learn from, and lead with their guidance. So thank you for the opportunity just to say a few words. I'm Aaron Miller. I am in this new role, Chief of Schools for Secondary. That was formerly Executive Director of Schools. My responsibilities as Chief of Schools for Secondary are to supervise principals, provide guidance and support for administrative teams, and serve as a liaison between school communities, families, students, and our district administration. I started my career in Bellevue 21 years ago as an English teacher at Newport High School and have served at Sammamish, at Tye Middle School and Odell Middle School in various roles, including 11 years as a principal. And in each of my various roles, I've really tried to focus on how to create deeper learning experiences for students. I think there's nothing more energizing for an educator than to see students fall in love with learning. And that opportunity for students, that experience for educators has really always been the thing for me that has been the thing that has fueled me. That and also creating learning environments for students that are equitable and inclusive, where students, regardless of where they live or where they come from or what their background is, can feel a sense of belonging to a school community. So that has been my work for 21 years in this district, and it will continue to be my work in the role as Chief of Schools. I feel really honored to be in this role, especially excited to join Dr. Aramaki and our district team. It really, to me, feels like a new chapter for us as a district, a very exciting time. and just very, very grateful for the opportunity. So thank you.
Great, welcome. At this point, we're in item 1.5 of our agenda with the acknowledgements. I'd like to acknowledge July 2nd, National Wildland Firefighter Day, July 4th, U.S. Independence Day, July 9th, Martyrdom of the Bob, July 26th, National Disability Independence Day, and July 19th is actually what that should say, Muharram. At this point, we are on, sorry, there's sometimes a delay on the slide movement, section 1.6 and approval of the agenda. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
Thank you. And if there's no discussion, is there any discussion? Then we'll go ahead and call all those in favor.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Then the motion carries for approval of our agenda today. Thank you. We can advance the slide. Thank you. To our consent agenda, which is section 2. And I will also ask for a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I have a question / request. Is my understanding that Dr. Aramaki is going to give us some remarks related to some of the items in our consent agenda when he has his superintendent remarks? I would like to hear those remarks prior to approving the consent agenda. Is that possible to switch the order? Maybe I shouldn't have approved the agenda. I should have thought about that ahead of time, but yeah.
Okay, we do try to pass this out before ahead of time so that we can get any of that taken care of, but certainly we want to accommodate that. Is there anything specifically, Director Chu, that you want taken out, and should we do the motion, or that way we keep the order of our agenda of having the, because I do believe that some items could be covered.
I think there's a collection of agreements with different labor organizations. And I would just like to hear his remarks and make sure that my understanding is consistent with what I believe it to be before I sign off on those, because I think a lot of thought has gone into that work, and how we work with our community of staff is very important to me. So I just want to make sure that we have a chance to hear from him before we just approve it as part of the package. So there's probably, Joyce, I think 6 of them, maybe 5. I just want to, rather than pull them one by one, maybe we could just vote on the consent agenda right after the superintendent remarks.
Shannon, I'd like your guidance here on whether we need a motion to move and a vote to move the order.
Any one of you who just moved to approve the consent agenda, or to approve the agenda, can move for reconsideration of the same and to take the superintendent update as an item out of order, which doesn't change the numbering of the agenda.
I'll do that. I apologize for not recognizing this when I moved to approve the agenda. I moved to reconsider the agenda with a proposed amendment to the agenda that we would move the consent agenda to immediately following the superintendent remarks section.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Dr. Aramaki, do you have any concerns with that? I'm guessing not.
No, that sounds fine.
Okay, great. And so all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. We will jump to item 3, and Dr. Aramaki, if you could provide your update. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Jess is going to go ahead and project the PowerPoint. Thank you so much, Jess. All right, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the community, to staff, to the board for the incredible welcome into this role as superintendent. I'm thrilled, and it's been an amazing first month on the job. I'm excited about giving a superintendent update, and I think as we have these board meetings and I do these updates, the purpose is going to be just to celebrate all of the amazing things happening in our district, as well as to provide important updates for the community. And so that's what I'm going to do. As I'm talking about these things that have happened just over this past month, you're going to hear themes of things that I've talked about in the past. You're going to hear elements of joy in our community. You're going to hear stories of our community taking care of the most vulnerable. You're going to see examples of innovation. And so hopefully all of those things that we've been talking about are things that you see in this, this first superintendent update. Go ahead and advance the slide. Okay, so first off, summer school in the Bellevue School District is amazing. We have so many things that we're offering to kids. And so even though the school year had finished, we have our recovery services and ESY services that are happening. And in that picture on the top right is a picture of kids in our recovery services who were at the Bellevue Botanical Garden. We're trying to do a project-based theme across all of our summer programs. We, for the first time, launched a middle school CTE camp. And so kids are taking art classes. They're doing a week-long rocketry. And so you can see the top left picture, kids taking the rocketry class. And over the course of 1 week, they learn how to build rockets, launch them, and then manipulate them so that they can go different heights. We're doing a middle school jump start this year to prepare students for middle school. I was able to witness, you can see the bottom right picture, we're doing early literacy work in our summer school. So based on our work on science of reading, and it was amazing to see students picking up on reading strategies based on the science of reading work that we've been doing. This year we added Mandarin dual language immersion to our Spanish program at summer school. And then of course we have high school credit recovery. And in both the sites, at Sammamish and at Lake Hills, we had free lunches for all students who wanted lunch. And so summer's been really amazing in our summer school program. A lot of innovation this summer, and we're looking forward to building on it next year. Go ahead. Real quick, just a shout out to Real Madrid. The foundation had come and sent coaches to work with students. We had 150 kids participate in a week-long soccer camp at Highland Middle School. And what's amazing about this is we had 30 of our kids from Highland who were provided scholarships to attend and just had an amazing time. And so we're looking forward to more partnerships like this to support our students. Next slide. A quick update on Bellevue Digital Discovery. A lot of great things happening in the realm of online learning here in Bellevue. We received state accreditation this year for our high school. We also, right before school got out, we were approved by OSBI to be a multi-district provider for digital. And so kids can join Bellevue Digital Discovery from any corner of Washington State, which is really awesome. What we're seeing is Bellevue Digital Discovery is meeting the needs of the diversity of our community. And so you can see the picture of Angela up there. You know, she's a professional at age 15, professional golfer, and she's able to take advantage of all that Bellevue has to offer through Bellevue Digital Discovery while working on her golf swing. But we also have kids who are participating who need it because they have anxiety or health concerns. For whatever the reason is, Bellevue Digital Discovery is providing a space for kids to learn online. You may have heard about this, but we're innovating at our schools. We are launching this fall STEAM at Sherwood Forest Elementary School. And so on the heels of some of the enrollment conversations that we've had and declining enrollment in some of our buildings, this spring, the Sherwood Forest team got together with some folks from downtown to talk about how they can kind of reignite, reinvigorate the school. And so that staff worked all spring together to develop a STEAM program that's going to launch this fall. They hosted these STEAM in the Park events at Crossroads Park, which was amazing, bringing the community out to be together. And what this is going to entail are fall and spring STEAM projects at every single grade level. So we're excited about the work that's happening at Sherwood Forest with their STEAM program. So touching on what Director Chu was asking about in the consent agenda, we're approving 2 collective bargaining agreements, one for mechanics and one for our maintenance workers. And I just want to say we have some of the most incredible people working in our mechanics and maintenance departments. And it's quite amazing because I think this is the case for CTE programs, but out in the world, you know, in industry, mechanics and maintenance workers make quite a bit of money. And so for us in the school district, I'm proud of the collective bargaining agreements that we've passed because it reflects increases in salary in order to recruit and retain the very best in mechanics and maintenance. And you can see a picture of our mechanics there. They work very hard to keep our buses safe. They had a 97% safety rating recently. And so they're doing great work, and we are proud to provide fair compensation for them. Next up, a partnership highlight. So Jennifer Fisher is here from Bellevue LifeSpring. And I had met with Jennifer last week and talked to her about the fact that we have $45,000 in unpaid breakfast and lunch student debt. And so in Bellevue, almost 25% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, 23.1% about right now. So almost 1 in 4 students in our district qualify for free reduced lunch meals. Compared to pre-pandemic, we've doubled our number of students who are homeless or are unhoused. And so we have a growing need here in Bellevue, and we can see that in students not able to pay for their breakfast or their lunches. And so at the end of the year, we had this $45,000 debt, and unless we have somebody come in and support us with that debt, we have to try to call parents and families to recoup that money. But in my conversation with Jennifer, she had said that, you know, we should bring this to Bellevue LifeSpring. And I just want to do a shout out to Bellevue LifeSpring for over 100 years. Bellevue LifeSpring has been supporting our community, taking care of the most vulnerable and most marginalized. And Bellevue LifeSpring is an organization. Jennifer is the executive director, but it is supported by community members and organizations and companies to take care of students and families in need right here in Bellevue. And so this week, the Bellevue LifeSpring board has voted to go ahead and pay the $45,000 in order to cover the unpaid student lunch debt. And so I just want to say thank you to Bellevue LifeSpring.
Yeah. I remember when it was Overlake Service League.
I just want to say how honored we are to provide the support to the families in the district. And Dr. Armaki, we're so honored to have him join our board. And I have to tell you, he made a very compelling case on Tuesday afternoon. And so I said, you know, this is something that is part of our mission, is to ensure that low-income students in the district don't have any insecurity when it comes to food or nutrition. So we are honored on behalf of our board and our organization and our donors to provide this level of support. And I want to thank you for your service. We are so honored to have you as our new superintendent and to have you as a member of our board. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll also just mention that Bellevue LifeSpring right now, they're planning to provide clothing for over 2,000 students in Bellevue. And so the folks at LifeSpring are doing amazing work. And thank you to all of the individuals and to the companies who support Bellevue LifeSpring to make that happen for us. As a related kind of hot off the press update, with regards to feeding our children, our nutrition services department applied for the community eligibility program in order to provide free meals at our highest need schools. And so starting this coming fall, we're going to be able to provide free breakfast and lunch at Sherwood Forest, Lake Hills, and Stevenson Elementary. So it doesn't matter who they are, any child that wants to have lunch, breakfast, will have it for free at those, which is really great. So thank you to Wendy Ware and the nutrition services team for all that hard work. Other important updates, none of these get pictures, sorry about that. But the first one is related to the hearing that we had right before the board meeting. We are needing to raise the ASB budget capacity, which requires a board vote. And I just wanted to make a comment about that. So ASB has particular rules about it, but at the beginning of the year, we're supposed to project how much we're planning to spend in our ASB budget. And then we're supposed to stay within that capacity. But as we're coming out of the pandemic, we are starting to get back to kind of what we typically spend, but we did not project as much as we thought we were going to spend. And so we have the money available in our ASB accounts, but what we need to do today in the agenda is to vote to raise the budget capacity so that we can pay for the trips and the student events that are happening during the summer. And so I just wanted to make sure that people understood what that was all about. We have an upcoming board retreat in August that I'm excited about. We're going to do some team building, but we're also going to work together to identify 2 to 3 process improvements that we want to make together for the fall. And then we're going to do some work on the student representative policy as it intersects with our equity-driven decision-making and critical criteria. So I'm excited about that work together that we get to do as a board. Next week, we have our budget presentation, and the headline for that is we're proud to be able to present a balanced budget for the upcoming school year, and you'll get more information on that. For the board, it'll come out tomorrow, I think, in your Friday memo, and then for the public, it'll come out right after that. And then forthcoming, we have information that will be coming out on middle school enrollment and conversations about potential consolidation, which I know community is interested in hearing about. Some information about strategic planning will come out soon. And then we will be sharing more information about the start of the 23-24 school year, which is going to be just around the corner. And then this is just a preview. Next week, August 3rd at our board meeting, we have an exciting announcement regarding robotics in Bellevue. And so this picture is the picture of the Bellevue Alliance, which is a group of 6 robotics teams from each of our high schools. And the Bellevue Alliance, they came and presented to me a request to use one of our buildings that we're not using as a school anymore in order to provide space for the teams to come and partner together. They've also requested some support with being able to get a varsity letter in robotics. And so next Thursday, we will have some exciting things to be able to share with our 6 robotics teams. And then my last part of my update is I would like to introduce the board to the superintendent cabinet for the 23-24 school year. I think as I've come on board, I have an amazing team, and I wanted to just make sure that you knew exactly who was on kind of the cabinet. These are the people that I work with every single week. Did I miss somebody? Sorry, Jeff. There's a space there. Okay. Well, anyways, all right. I should have triple checked that one, but okay. So Melissa DeVita is our Deputy Superintendent of Finance and Operations. Eva Collins, our Deputy Superintendent of Academics, Instruction, and Leadership. John Harrison is our Chief of Staff. That is a title change, but he's basically going to continue the work that he has been doing. The key relationship in working with the board and with the community and supporting me as well. Janine Thorne, our Chief Communications Officer. Shannon McMenamy, our General Counsel. Heather Edlund is our Executive Director of Student and Staff Engagement. There it is, Jeff Thomas, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. Sharon Kaus, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. Dr. Heather Sanchez, congratulations on the doctorate, by the way. Is our Chief of Schools over elementary. And so we are consolidating 4 executive directors of school roles into 2, one over elementary, one over secondary. And so with that, I changed the title to Chief of Schools. Aaron Miller, whom you met earlier, is our Chief of Schools for secondary. Shamari Jones is our Director of Equity and Strategic Engagement. Melanie McGee is our Director of Program Management Office, and she's a key leader in doing the work around bringing equity into decision-making, which I'm excited about this year. And then, of course, Yasmina Patterson, who is here tonight, is my assistant. She also basically works with all of us on the cabinet, and we couldn't do our work without her. So that is the superintendent's cabinet. And that is the end of my update.
Super. I was looking forward to it because as you talked about the weekly updates that you provide to us, they are simultaneously focused and detailed and outstanding. And as was your update, appreciate it. Thank you. At this time, we do have the consent agenda back. And Director Chu, did you have any follow-up questions?
I do. I didn't hear anything really on the collective bargaining agreements in the update. Did I miss that?
The only thing about the collective bargaining agreements is that we increase the salary for both the mechanics and for the maintenance workers. That's kind of the main change. Otherwise, most of it is status quo. I don't know if Jeff Thomas, if there's anything else that you want to add about the collective bargaining agreements, but that was kind of the main headline for that.
Thank you, Dr. Armaki. The key difference, you'll see significant compensation increase for two of these groups for a variety of reasons because of market conditions, but also both groups during the last 3 years had already had previously negotiated contracts, and there were a couple of salary increases during that time period that by the nature of their contract, they did not get. So part of what we had to do in the collective bargaining process is we had to do a little bit of catch up because of that. And then the second part is to make sure that we maintain competitive wages. And these particular units have been remarkable over the last couple of years. They have been here day in and day out and done the unseen, behind the scenes work that keeps the district going. And it's long-term commitment to the employees. And we're really proud of the agreements that we've negotiated with them.
And then I
Thank
should
you.
also.
Oh, go ahead. And then I would like, if we could, during this meeting, and in general, it'd be helpful to have folks, whether online or in person, raise hands electronically, because it helps us just make sure we get to everybody. And so I've got Director Watson staged, but Dr. Aramaki, do you have something preliminary before?
Sure. The other thing I was just going to mention was we also on the consent agenda have cabinet compensation. And so one thing I will just point out is with cabinet compensation, just for transparency, we did not do any salary increases for cabinet, especially given kind of where we are with enrollment and budget. The cabinet compensation only reflects the COLA increases. So it's the cost of living adjustment that we've given to all of our groups. We did include that with cabinet. But other than that, there's no change to the cabinet compensation.
Thank you. Director Watson?
Yeah, so I'm wondering, I'm commenting for the vote that we're going to have to approve this piece of the consent agenda. Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to make it clear to everybody that the reason, in this time of budget difficulty, the reason why we're sort of voting to approve these agreements is that these kind of mechanics and people who are really helping us have the kind of skills that they could get jobs probably anywhere in Bellevue. So we need to at least compensate them well enough that they'll stay on with us. Basically what I'm thinking.
Thank you. Director Chu?
I think that Jane had her hand up in the room first, and I've already spoken, so why don't I wait and go after everyone else has a chance first?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And if we could, just everybody electronically, because it'll be easier for me to see. Thanks. Go ahead, Director Nars.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, thank you for
bring some clarification on the reason why we're increasing the salary for our mechanics. So we do want to keep our staff as much as possible so that we can continue to run smoothly. But I do wanted to celebrate and also I do ask regarding I love what you shared about the digital discovery and where we are at that space. I know there was a share last year as we were moving into and creating this space. If we could get an update on where we are in our projection and how can we improve and in the scope of things in that space. I want to make sure that we are doing the best we can to really highlighting the exceptional program that we were trying to create.
That sounds good.
Thank you. Director Chu?
Yeah, that's Chu, not Chu. Just it sounds kind of strange. All right, so
I'm sorry. What's the difference?
I'll take it offline. So the reason that I raised the comment is that I think that we're in the midst of approximately $30 million of trying to make up in our budget for the single year, and we're making significant increases in salaries, and I think that there is an important reason that we're doing that. But when we take such actions, I think it's very important to be transparent about it. And also in the future, it would be great to understand the impact on our bottom line, like how many dollars will each of these contract changes have on our bottom line, and how did we account for that with respect to the rest of the budget. Those things are important, and so is taking care of our labor, but so is taking care of our community and being fiscally transparent about everything that's going on.
Great. And I had my hand up at some point, and I don't know if I unraised it, but I did intend to unraise it. So I think that we are done with our discussion. And does our motion still stand, Shannon? Or do we need to take a new? Could I get a motion just in case to
I
approve
would
the consent
recommend you go
agenda?
ahead and move to adopt the consent agenda, have it seconded, and take your vote, just so it's very clear.
Yeah. Okay, great. Could I have a motion to so do?
Okay, I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Great, thank you. Is there a
Seconded.
second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, so all those in favor of adopting the consent agenda? Aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Are there any abstentions? So I believe that the motion carries, if I read that correctly. Thank you. Okay, if we could move the slide. And we already did item number 3, so we can move it forward one more. And apologies for the slight delay. Our public comment typically will start at 5 p.m. And we had good conversation, and therefore we'll go ahead and get started with our public comment. At this time, I will read some of the highlights of our guidelines. You'll see here on the screen that we are grateful to receive public comment and appreciate the thoughtful input of all of our community members. Because of the limitations on our calendar, we generally limit our public comment time period to 20 minutes, and that would be 2 minutes per participant. This is in order to maximize the number of comments that we can hear. We'll also mention that we don't typically respond in the moment because we want to maximize the amount of time that each of our participants can speak. The guidelines allow us to terminate any statements when the allotted time has passed, and we will have somebody in the room helping us with, you'll see a timer on screen, as well as a verbal warning if we are past the 2 minutes. A few items that I'd like to point out in the bullet points is that we require a standard of civility that includes not to include any comments that are libelous or slanderous, are an unwarranted invasion of privacy, are obscene or indecent, violate our school district policy or procedures, would incite an unlawful act, or create a material and substantial disruption. So with the reading of the guidelines, I'd like to go ahead and see who we have for public comment. Great, looks like we've got 3 people, 2 in person and 1 online, and is our standard practice. We will go ahead and start with the in-person, and if William Chang could come to the podium, that would be excellent.
Dear Bellevue School Board, my name is William Chang and I'm a rising senior at Bellevue High School. I'm also the Washington DECA State President, serving 13,000 student members and 165 school chapters in our state. DECA is a career and technical student organization, or CTSO for short, that prepares emerging leaders and entrepreneurs for careers in marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. CTSOs provide relevant, engaging programs that improve student achievement, reduce dropout rates, and help students discover a wide range of career options. They are an important part of every school's career and technical education department. On behalf of the DECA programs on our district, thank you for your support and significance you place on career and technical education, or CTE. It's inspiring to see the 10 career pathways that students can learn from and explore. Today, I'm here for 2 reasons. First, to advocate the continued support of CTE in the face of current, past, and future budget cuts. And secondly, to remind you all that CTE support is student support, especially at Bellevue School District. Allow me to paint the picture of DECA across our high schools. In Bellevue High School's DECA program, we have over 100 members, which is 20% larger than the 2nd largest club at Bellevue. In Newport High School's DECA program, there are 200 plus student members. Interlake's High School DECA program has over 100 members, and Sammamish High School's DECA program has a similar number of members. At all 4 comprehensive high schools, DECA programs are among the largest student clubs. However, DECA is not the only CTSO, and over 33,000 students across our high schools are part of one. So one of the most direct ways in which you can support and empower students is through career and technical education. By financially supporting CTE, investing in the curriculum, and celebrating CTE success, our district can emerge stronger than ever. Thank you truly for your continued support.
Joyce, if you're talking, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Okay, great. I wanted to thank William for his input and just reiterate that our board is fully in support of the CTE programs. And I think I can say that on behalf of our board, since we have all made remarks to that effect in the past, and appreciate the comments. Thank you. With that, Anne-Marie Clark.
She's not here.
Okay. Then we will, if she arrives, then we can come back to her. But for now, we will turn to online and Keith Doherty.
Vice President Shuey, can we check and see if she's not online?
Oh, yes. Let's see. If you are online, Anne-Marie, we will need you to raise your hand so that we can find you more easily. I propose that we go ahead and turn it over to, is Keith Doherty online? And could you raise your hand so that we can find you? So are either Anne-Marie or Keith Doherty in the room or online? I'm looking through the participant list and I don't see either of them on the list either. Could somebody double check my work?
I'm not seeing either one of them either. Are participants or attendees rather than presenters able to raise hand or communicate right now?
Yeah, Jess, can you double check? I know that in the past we've asked folks to raise hands. So even if they can't turn on mic
Yep,
or camera.
Just tested it. We're good. It does work.
Okay. Okay, great. Then with that, unfortunately, this will be the end of public comment. And we invite those who were not able to sign up for another board meeting public comment session. Thank you. If you could advance the slide. We are now at item 5, which is proposed resolution 2023-17. And so I'd like to invite Jack McLeod up to speak to this, please.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm here seeking approval of Resolution 2023-17, as shown in Exhibit 14A, that certifies the completion of the Sherwood Forest Elementary School entry vestibule project. This is the final acceptance, and it be adopted by the Board of Directors.
Thank you very much. And could I ask for a motion to approve this resolution certifying the completion? Director Chu.
I just had a quick question for Jack, if that's okay.
Sure.
Of course.
I just wanted to know, in short, did we accomplish what we set out to do? And is there anything that we're going to do to make sure that we know that the money we just invested did what we expected it to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. Sherwood was one of the schools built and designed and built starting in 2007. And it was one of the few schools we have that's on an intersection of 2 major streets, 164th Northeast 24th. So the architect then designed 2 entries to that, one off 164th, one off of Northeast 24th. The issue arose from a lot of confusion on which was the one entry. So the one on 164th was for students and the bus drop off. Northeast 24th was parents, visitors, and so on. But it was always a little bit of confusion on that. So by having the entry vestibule, very clearly defined front entry, that's taken away that confusion. And so the entry off of Northeast 24th is the main identified entry of the school. And as far as the security aspect of the vestibule and realigning some of the office, it gives us better clarity from the administrative team to see the arrival of students and parents and who's coming on the campus. And as far as is the value of this going to be, is it going to be realistic? Yeah, it is. And it has been just in the fact of having a more defined front entry, but also better circulation within the school, keeping the office staff, the reception area at that front door instead of somewhere between the old entry and off 164th and the entry off of Northeast 24th. So that's improved that greatly.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the question and for the great answer. I see Director Watson's hand up.
Yeah, I had a couple. Okay, so the main entry is which one then? The 24th Street or?
Yes.
The one?
Yes.
Okay.
Off of 24th. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I always use. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to ask a question about the security there. So you have the new vestibule, but what about the landscaping? Because I know I think it's changed over time, but some of that landscaping when I've been there has been high enough that it sort of obscures the view of the entry. And I always worry about that, coming from, my New York days, that someone could be hiding in those, they're like tall grasses or something. So I'm wondering what's the current state there with that?
Well, interestingly enough, a lot of our schools, when we build them, we put the plants in, they're small and everything like that. They grow up to be bigger ones. But the grounds crew does a good job of trimming those up, keeping them down. And right now during the summer, that's when they get a lot of their growth on them. And so they're in the process. And you'll notice that as we get into early fall, the grass will be cut down into its dormant stage and growing up. But yeah, we pay a lot of attention to these things at all the school sites.
Okay, good. Because I think one time I went to a meeting there and I thought, wow, someone could jump out of these All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the great discussion and answers. Just for protocol purposes, wanted to mention that we typically will have the motion, then the second, and then I will open it, or President Serafin, for discussion. And it would be great if we could continue to follow that protocol so that we can move efficiently through our agenda and have these great conversations. So having had the discussion after the motion and second, could we hear the motion? Or having had it before? Now we'll have the motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Great. Any further discussion? Just to dig the grooves in for that order of things? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, the motion carries. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move our slides to item number 6, which is approval of Resolution 2023-18, which we heard a little bit about during Dr. Aramaki's report, and we also had opportunity for public comment on at a meeting at 3:45 earlier today. And so could I get a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? Thank you. Director Shu?
Yeah, I just want to go back and again, this is a budget change, so I want to ask for explicit, like I asked this question offline. I think it's important that we ask it together and get explicit clarity on, does this impact, did we have to cut additional dollars to make up for this money? Do we know why we couldn't anticipate it when we put the budget together, and what are we putting in place so we won't have surprises like this moving forward?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Do you want to share just a little bit, Melissa?
Thank you for the question, Melissa DeVita, Deputy Superintendent of Finance and Operations. So this is the first time since I've been here that we've ever asked for a budget extension on our ASB funds. As you know, we put the budget together during the springtime, and with the ASB funds, they're provided to us by the schools. And so last spring, before they even came back to school, they try and estimate the number of trips and other things that students will be going on or participating in the summer. A lot of times that really hasn't been fully planned out yet because they haven't even come back to school yet for that school year. With us coming back from COVID, there were a lot of things that weren't happening while we were on COVID, including student travel and other things during the summer. And so the schools did not fully plan for everything that was actually happening this summer. And so that's why we had to ask for this additional extension. It has no impact on anything else in our general fund budget. The ASB fund is a separate fund. The dollars for those things are usually raised through fundraising by student families and those types of things. So it doesn't really impact what we spend on our day-to-day operations. The money is already available in those accounts. And so this is just raising the budget limit for these items so that we can get them paid for. To minimize the need to do this in the future, we are building in a contingency over what is requested by the schools, just to give us a little bit more of a buffer in case things are added later in the year that they were not aware of when they did the initial planning in the previous spring.
So just to finish and make sure I understand correctly, my understanding of this was that money is there. This is an administrative exercise to approve the release of the dollars, but that the money is there. We don't need to find more money or anything like that. We have it. We didn't account for needing to spend as much of it, but it's fine, and it's a separate account from the general fund.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh,
Hi.
go ahead, Dr. Watson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, with my dipping into the world of ASB accounting, it does seem rather counterintuitive, right? Because you have to sort of list out more than you think you'll ever spend just in case. And you have to also put down more than you'll think you'll raise. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I had that 2-year stint as a ASB Science National Honor Society advisor, and I had to learn about this budgeting, and you have to convince the student treasurer that, even though you think you can only raise this much at the bake sale, you have to put more, you always have to leave this space. And so I can just imagine that rolls up to the school ASB budget, which rolls up to the district one. And so I think it's kind of counterintuitive. You just have to put a lot of buffer in there. And so I can easily see how we could actually have the money and still need to do this resolution.
Thank you. And I'll also say for the public that these comments that are raised by our directors are really helpful hopefully to the public, because we do have these conversations offline. But thank you, Director Chu and Director Watson, for raising them online so that we can have the transparency for the community to understand why it is that we are asking for this resolution and the steps that we are taking to avoid having to do so unnecessarily. Dr. Aramaki.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. The first one is we'll work to make sure that we don't have to go through this exercise again next year. So we'll have those protections in place. And then the second thing is, I think the good news in this action is that we're starting to see our activities and things with our students come back after the pandemic. And so this request is a reflection of the fact that we have more and more student activities that are happening. Kids are doing more, participation, travel, and we're really excited about that. So that's the good news side of this story for sure.
Great point, thank you. And I thought that I saw, Director Aris's hand up.
Yeah, I did, and I pulled it down, but I guess I'll just put it back up. Thank you for the clarification. That's exactly what I wanted to ask about. Thanks.
This kind of activity coming back. Excellent. So with that, our discussion is over, and could I have a motion? Or I did have the motion. I'll have the vote. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Okay, if we could advance the slides. Okay, we've got section 7, and we have 3 items under this board business period. And if you could advance the slide to 7.1 to approval of the 2023-24 regular. Oh, we don't have a specific slide. Okay, we'll keep that up there. We did receive a proposed regular board meeting schedule for the 2023-2024 year. And if I could get, again, motion second, and we can have discussion if there's any necessary discussion, that would be great.
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And open for discussion. Does anyone have any comments on what was proposed? Thank you, Director Chu.
Yeah, I just want to, I just want to be explicit again. We have an echo, so I want to wait. Thanks. So I just want to be explicit that this was run through and a check. I suppose I could ask this as a question, but I'm just going to say it because I know that it was that it was run through a check on different holidays and dates and activities to really minimize conflict and to maximize inclusion. And that is standard practice for us now and has been for many years. And it's gotten more and more thoughtful as we go forward and more inclusive. So I just want people to know that that is done very thoughtfully by our staff.
Thank you. And it's possible that we might miss things at times, but as Director Chu says, it is our model of conduct, and we hope that we won't miss things. And if we do, we will correct them as quickly as possible. Okay, Director Watson. Thank you, Director Chu.
Yeah, I put them all on my calendar, but I was wondering, did we double check the date that's around the November WASDA meeting and Thanksgiving and all that? Did we double check that? Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I think that's
Thank
why
you.
our second, no, oh, sorry, I keep doing that. Wrong. That was my fault. I've unmuted the wrong mic. The WASDA meeting, I brought that to attention, and so that's why the meeting was moved back to the second meeting in November being consecutive on the 9th instead of the third week. And then Jane and I will be attending the WASDA General Assembly in Spokane in September 22nd-ish. So that meeting on the 21st will still allow us. We'll leave straight from here probably and end up at the airport that night, but that will be
Oh
fun.
my, that's what I was trying to avoid for people, but yeah, thank you.
No, that's
Yeah.
fine. It works. But I think we did check it against those dates. So thank you.
Great. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. So moving on to section 7.2, we have a school visit schedule, which I thought that I saw, but I guess it wasn't as part of the slides. If we could go ahead and have the motion second and we can have a discussion or any questions, that would be great.
So moved.
And a second, please.
I can second. Oh, I did.
Thank you for the motion and the second, and we now open it for discussion. Director Chu.
I just want to note that I will have to attend the 10:10 visit remotely. So.
Okay, great. And I think that we are prepared to project the school visit schedule. So if we could do that. So the October 10th one. And Director Chu, you said that you would be attending remotely? Is that?
Yes, that's.
Okay, great.
Sorry,
Yeah, thank you for saying.
Use your hand raising thing and all the stuff on the screen and trying to deal with the in-room mics, and I'm just adjusting. Thank you for your patience.
It's working well on my end. It sounds like it might be a little bit, yeah, extra stuff for you on that end, but it's working fine for those of us online. Thank you for pointing out the October 10th. Jess, you'll make note of that to make sure that we're prepared to accommodate the hybrid. I should just issue that as a statement rather than a question, and we'll talk about it offline and just make sure we're prepared, because it's great that we've been able to accommodate hybrid. Thank you. Okay, Director Aris.
Yeah, I may be having to do the October 10th remotely as well. It's not absolute yet, but there's a possibility.
Okay, we will certainly be prepared. So great, thank you. All right.
Actually,
go ahead.
Can I propose that there be some follow-up offline, because I know that schools often feel really disappointed when only one or sometimes two directors show up. I know we can't guarantee that all 5 of us can be at every school visit, but it can be very disappointing when a school really prepares and puts its heart and soul into stuff, and then only one person is on site to come and see their actual physical building and classrooms and to have that communal time with them. So if we are down to only one board director who can be on site, could just look again at that date in case, just for the school's sake. I'm fine with being online. I just want to make sure that the school doesn't feel like we didn't care, or we didn't, we do care quite a bit. And so I just want to make sure, maybe could that be followed up on offline?
I think that's a great idea. I do think that we can continue to model that the hybrid is a way that we can, I've been online and people have taken the video through the different hallways, but has in the past been a challenge for those of us online. And so I think it's a great suggestion that
Joyce, I
we
just want to call
one.
it, it's not really so much to accommodate us. I think that technologically and collaboratively, we've been exceptional, and while it may be imperfect, I feel like our staff has worked really hard to enable that scenario for us and for parents who can't attend in person and so forth, and that's been great. What I've found when I'm trying to share is that our community itself wants to have communal time, and sometimes it can be really disappointing when they've gone out and prepared food to share in communion with us, and when they've prepared like a room and they want us to see the artwork and things on the walls with the students, and they can feel as a community disappointed when there aren't a few folks who are on site to experience the special things that they've put in place. So for that reason, I'm just asking for us to verify that we'll have, say, 2 directors who will be in person for the meeting. That's all I wanted to suggest.
Yeah, what I was about to say is that I certainly acknowledge that that is a component. I also think that our facilitation of the hybrid allows for, as you said, and acknowledge as well, that the participation that is broader than if we didn't enable that. And so being able to converge the two and accommodate the two forms has been a great gemstone of our district, and we should continue to provide that. What I was going to say is that I think it's a great suggestion, especially to, before each of these meetings, confirm how many people will be online versus in person, and make sure that we adjust as we need to. So is there somebody, and I see your hand up, Dr. Aramaki, who might be able to, I'll ask you the question and you may have a comment too, but is there somebody who can take the lead in just making sure how many people are going to attend? Because I know that we get an Outlook invite and we can say accept, but it doesn't always say whether it's going to be for sure or in person or online. And so if you could provide some thoughts on how we can address that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, those are really great points. I think John always does that before our school board visits to the schools. And I think it is important because schools, they work very hard to get all of that stuff ready. And so I'm just committing to that. We will do that for the October 10th meeting as well as all the rest of them. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that where we are is ready to take our motion. All those in favor of this school visit schedule? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstentions? The motion carries. Great. And then if we could now go back to the slide that shows all three. Great. Section 7.3 is the pre-reading and engagement plan for new policy 2019. I think we might be missing something, but the instructional framework. And I believe that John Harrison will be speaking to this.
And Jess, I'm just going to hold for a minute on showing the draft. And just a note, the new policy's name is high quality instruction. So my apologies for the mislabeled slide. I just want to put this into a little bit of context, because this new policy, new draft policy is 4 years in the making. It's had kind of an interesting history. So I just wanted to kind of give you the context, and it was in the memo, but I think for the public to hear the context, it would be important. So going back to the 2018-19 school year was the formation of the Equity Advisory Group, and their task was to review existing district policies to look for alignment with our district efforts around equity at the time. And that review surfaced that we did, as a district, have a policy around curriculum and adoption of instructional materials, but we did not have a policy around instruction. So in year 2 of the Equity Advisor Group, in the fall of 2019, an EAG subgroup began working on the development of such a policy. The subgroup developed a draft and associated materials based on decades of educational research to shape an instructional framework anchored in culturally relevant, responsive, and sustaining pedagogy. In the fall of 2020, during the COVID-19 building closures, the EAG subgroup started meeting with various entities and teams and groups within the district to present their proposed policy and to receive feedback. That team was a combination of staff folks as well as community members of the EAG. In the spring of 21, the subgroup presented a revised draft policy to the school board's SIFE committee, which is Students Instruction and Family Engagement. However, due to the disruption from the pandemic, further work on the policy was delayed, but it was included in the policy schedule that you adopted, what we now call the rolling policy schedule, the first edition of that in May of 2022, exactly a year ago. It was initially considered for consideration by yourselves last fall, but we put it on hold pending the release of the Washington Professional Educator Standards Board, or PESB as they're known, their cultural competency, diversity, equity, and inclusion standards. And we're also anticipating revisions to the framework for teaching, also known as the Danielson framework, that we as a district use to evaluate educator performance. And the Danielson framework had a specific, a lot of the revisions were specifically to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion components of the framework. So those two documents kind of came to fruition in the spring. So last spring, throughout the spring, I met with the leads of the subgroup to review the CCD and DE&I standards and the revised Danielson framework, and to look at the implications for the draft policy. And so the draft that's being presented tonight includes the updates that were made as a result of that review. So the policy is designed to be specific and flexible, affording teachers the ability to adjust their instruction to meet the needs of the students. The policy makes a commitment to high quality instruction with belonging as the foundation for relationships that embrace the unique identities of each student. The three components of high quality instruction outlined in the policy are culturally relevant, responsive to sustaining pedagogy, alignment to standards, and informed by data. And the policy also includes a definition or a notion that high quality instruction is embedded within an MTSS framework. Once staff return from summer break, there will be additional engagement with various groups outlined in the policy memo to inform a revised draft for first reading in October. This timing also allows us the opportunity to utilize the critical criteria process that's been in development since last spring by a subgroup of the Equity Advisory and Advocacy Collaborative, formerly known as the EAG. Following tonight's meeting, I will provide each of you with an individual link to share any feedback that you may have, and I'll give you a timeline that's well in advance of that first reading scheduled for October 19th. So if I would just ask Jess to put the draft policy on the screen, and I'll just orient you and then turn it back to you, Vice President Shuey, to facilitate any feedback or conversation you may have at this time. So that first section there, you'll notice the numbered lines 7 through 11 kind of highlight, in my opinion, our commitment to keep students at the center of their own learning, to provide schools and classrooms that are inspired by educators who build and sustain strong relationships with the students, their families, and their communities. It also speaks to us as a district embracing the unique identities of each student, their racial, cultural, social, familial, linguistic, and historical backgrounds, and the many facets that make up their individual identities. The second section spells out culturally relevant, responsive, and sustaining. The framework for teaching, there's a link to it, and also the cultural competency, diversity, equity, inclusion standards is a link to that. What I want to say is that while both the framework for teaching and the CCD&I standards are discrete, they do align very, very nicely with the tenets of culturally responsive relevant, and sustaining pedagogy. And so those 5 bullets are kind of the heart of what the research says, what the research defines as culturally relevant, responsive, and sustaining. Alignment to standards is pretty self-explanatory. Our instruction needs to align to content standards. And then beginning with line 49, informed by data, this speaks to a nuanced and sophisticated use of
Can I interrupt a moment to ask for the screen to be scrolled to line 49? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
So that last piece, informed by data, speaks to the nuance and sophisticated use of both qualitative and quantitative data to inform and to improve instruction. And then finally, that notion that high quality instruction is embedded in a multi-tiered systems of support, and that we as a district use an MTSS framework, that we use a framework to implement an evidence-based continuum of practices to achieve academic and social emotional outcomes for each student. The MTSS framework focuses on universal core instruction and student-centered learning individualized for student needs. So that's the draft policy. And again, this is a pre-reading. Scheduled first reading is in October to provide some time for additional engagement. One of the main reasons, of course, is that it's 4 years in the making, and some of the folks that gave feedback in round 1 have changed on those teams, and also that was pre the work on the CCD and I standards and the updated Danielson framework. So over the next few weeks, the team will be getting additional feedback, and then we will be bringing a first reading version to you in October. And I will stop there.
Thank you very much, Executive Director Harrison. It's clear that a lot of work and a lot of time has gone into this. And I raise my hand as well to participate in discussion. It is, as Executive Director Harrison said, a pre-reading. We will also have opportunity at first and second readings, as well as our Monday meetings. And so I'll ask folks to keep your comments brief so we can continue to stay on schedule. And go ahead, Director Chu.
Thanks. So I'm very excited to see this policy. First of all, I think it's something that's the heart of the work of our district, and it's been conspicuously absent. It was about 4 or 5 years, I think it might have been 5 years ago, but 4 years ago, when I was meeting with some of the EAG folks, and I said, we keep chipping away at the periphery of equity, but if we really want to change what happens in our system, we need to think about how it applies to instruction, and we don't have a framework to do that. We should have a policy and a framework to do that, but that's not something that the board can start as the author. That's something that we need our experts to start with as the author, and then the board can, integrate its values and as part of our district and so forth. So I'm really excited to see the iteration, the work, and the contributions that have gone into this. Thank you for doing that. I have some specific comments and things that I'd like to see considered before the first reading comes back. First of all, I really appreciate the culturally relevant alignment to standards and informed by data. There are 2 things that I don't see spelled out very deeply, and I think that they are at the heart of some of our practices, and I'd like to figure out how they fit into this a little differently. They may not be their own points, but I'd like them to stand out and be thought of more carefully. One is engagement. We talk about the work being engaging and rigorous, but in the first paragraph, we also say that we want it to be sustaining instruction. I don't even know what sustaining instruction means, but I do know what engaging instruction means. Not that it's a perfect, precise definition, but there's a lot of that's a lot more tangible to me. So I'd like to get the concept of engagement as center to our instruction, because our job isn't just to throw content or things at students, it's to engage students in learning. And I want us to be accountable for doing that. Secondly, I don't see much about differentiation. In fact, what I see here is what we want each student to learn and overall how we want things to go, but it doesn't do much to acknowledge the fact that teachers are standing there in front of a classroom of students. And what's relevant, it does do a great job talking about making sure we know who our students are and have relationships with them, but it doesn't do a great job of talking about how important it is for teachers to have access to materials and supports that allow them to differentiate instruction, to have multiple points of entry and connection with each student so that each student can connect to and engage in the learning. So those two things, engagement and differentiation, for me, they don't show up here adequately. A second comment that I have is I think that the section on culturally relevant and responsive teaching is a little overly specific in which standards we reference. If we want this to kind of be a living document, it would be nice to talk about the latest practices and to conform to the current best practices and the current state law codes and standards. If you go to policy 5240, which is our evaluation policy, we don't reference Danielson directly in that policy. We've talked about removing references to universal design. This is overly specific and not necessarily going to live over time. And third, a third comment is that this does a great job of talking about instruction, and I love the data monitoring. I would also like some acknowledgement that the instruction that students are receiving, that they're participating in and part of, is not just to impart knowledge, it's to impart knowledge, concepts, content, and skills. And it's really important that we have a mix of those things in all of our lessons so that students aren't just doing math, they're learning how to talk about math with other people. They're learning how to work together on a problem to solve it. There are skills that go with science, engineering, English, critical thinking, all these things. And I feel an absence of that acknowledgement in this document. And I think that covers it for me, because otherwise I think this is the essence of what we want to say. And I really appreciate that it's been trimmed down from some of the stuff that was here before. Thank you for all the work.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chuna. Just very, very quickly, the last couple bullets under culturally responsive, relevant, and sustaining pedagogy do kind of mention engagement and differentiation, but I appreciate that call out. And of course, the irony is in the Danielson framework, the focus really is strong on engagement. So the framework emphasizes it. So I appreciate the suggestion to emphasize that here in the policy.
Thank you. We've got a few more hands up, and we'll get through these. Just a reminder that we do have a lot of opportunity, including the online link that Executive Director Harrison said that he would be sending to us. I do think that there's a good place for our comments online so that the community has the benefit of what we've discussed, but we will have additional opportunity. That said, Director Watson. You're muted.
Oh, yeah, this is making me think. You go back to sort of like the basics of the board versus the superintendent, like the vision versus the operations. And I look at this, and this not about the work that was done here on this culturally relevant, responsive, and sustaining paragraph. I am thankful for the work that was done here, and I'm not critiquing that. But what I want to say is we're very specific there. I think Christine pointed that out. About what the framework is going to be, what the standards are going to be. And then we go down to we say there's what do we say? There's 3 or 4 areas in that top sentence. I would have made it kind of bulleted in, but we're saying that we need culturally relevant, responsive, and sustaining. We need alignment to standards. We need informed by data, but we flesh out what the first bit that we need, culturally relevant, responsive, sustaining, down to what the standards are going to be, what the framework's going to be. Then we come to the second piece, which I think is also important, alignment to standards, and we say relevant standards. And I'm thinking, is that state standards? Is that PISA standards? Is that TIMS standards? Is that AP standards, IB standards? Whose standards? And so I'm feeling like if the board is able to be specific enough on culturally relevant, responsive, and sustaining, what those standards and frameworks would look like, why would we not, in the second part, be a little more specific about what we want for the relevant academic and social emotional standards? So it just seems like they should be parallel. We either don't speak to any standards or we speak to the standards in all the sections of this policy. And I would like to also be a little more specific about informed by data also, like have the paragraphs of this be parallel. Tell me like kind of what data, like what quantitative and qualitative, like what?
Yeah, I mean, I can just let you know kind of the reason for the way it's presented tonight is I think that, you know, the thinking of the folks on the subcommittee and others along the way in the additional feedback and reach out that we did last spring is alignment to standards is not new. We've been kind of engaged in that and focused on that work for some time. The same can be said around data-informed instruction. We've been in partnership with ANET, for example, for the last number of years. We've really kind of focused on that, where culturally relevant, responsive, and sustaining, we felt that there needed to be more specificity in terms of explaining what that means. So it is interesting, the point that you're making, Director Watson, has been made. And when we've looked at ways to kind of expand the description of what alignment to standards and informed by data means, we didn't really come up with much more. But again, it's good feedback, and again, this is a pre-reading draft. We'll take that feedback and iterate on it and keep plugging away, and and you'll see changes before the next time that you see this in advance of the October 19th meeting.
Sorry, just to interject, we have two more board members that want to just kind of share, and so I think we'll just collect those comments and then we'll take that back and then move forward with it. Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I think it may be 4 at this point. And we're going a second round, apparently. What I will say also about in terms of we have gone over in this section, I would just ask directors to consider that during the board discussion, we will shorten that part of our agenda tonight because it is this is great conversation, but we just need to have it either here or there and just be attentive to how much time we're taking at this point and adjust during the director discussion part. We do want to, I'd like to continue to honor the agenda times that we've set out and the staff members' time who have allotted the time that we say that we've allotted, as well as the public, to our meetings. With that, I see Director Aris's hand up next.
Thanks. I'm super excited that we're actually getting around to this policy. So I think it will do wonders in helping creating a consistent space that is will help all of our students to thrive. So thank you for bringing it up and finally working it through. That said, I do agree with both Director Chu and Director Watson regarding calling out the frameworks and the recommendations and the policies. I wonder if we could move that to our procedure space and make it a little bit more high level to keep it so that we don't have to mend this just because of those specific words in the future. But I know the procedure is a little bit more flexible versus the policy itself. The other is, I love the data-driven, but I'm curious, when we say data-driven, are we talking about grading, or are we talking about research? And how does grading fit? I know we've talked about doing a better job of having a better grading system across the school district, and we've tried to approach this multiple times over the past, or since I've been on the board. And I'd like to know how that fits into this policy, and if there is space for that here. And if so, let's roll it out. And the other is MTSS. Super excited that we're adding that here, but I know we've utilized it, especially in our behavior, and want to make sure that we're utilizing it to address all different areas of the learning, especially the academics. So it would be, I'd appreciate if you could call that out a little bit more specifically so that it is clear. With the, our global competency that we've launched, I think this kind of marries it really well, but I wonder if we thought through with that and this together, and if there's making sure that the language really supports. It's not just about culture, but it is about that critical skills that we would like to impart on them, and want to make sure that we use this as a tool to really push that forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think that we are back to, in terms of the hand raising, Director Chu, but since Director Watson, I don't believe, oh wait, both of you have gone one round. Sorry, go ahead, Director Chu.
Yeah, I think you haven't gone yet, and you had your hand up. Did you, I'm happy to wait.
Oh, great, thank you. I can't see my hand anymore. Oh, I think after a certain amount of time, yeah. So I did have it up. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind going to the beginning of the document. Thank you, Director Chu, for making space for my comments too. So a couple of just comments. I'll reiterate what everyone said. I think it's so wonderful that we've got this in front of us now and really supportive of it. The line that I wanted to just comment on starts at section 10. I love this, embracing the unique identities of every student, racial, cultural, social, familial, linguistic, and historical backgrounds, and the many facets of their individual identities. I really appreciate calling out racial because there has been a lot of backlash against talking about racial equity, and it's really very relevant to so many people's experiences. So thank you for saying it. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for it being front and center there. I do like the many facets of their individual identities because it includes, I see that I am frozen on my end, so I'm going to shut off my camera a second and turn it back on. And this can include people's musical backgrounds, can include a lot of other things. I do have a question here about whether, where this list came from, and sexual orientation and gender are also important parts of people's identities and students' identity, including students' identities. And not necessarily to be answered here, but wanted to just raise that as something that I wanted to understand better for one of our later readings. And then, yes, Director Chu. Oh, sorry, one other comment I was going to say is that when Director Chu pointed out the comment about sustaining, which is at least in the beginning of this paragraph 2, I read sustaining as supportive, but then I realized that there may be different meanings. And so if we could get some clarity around that, I agree with getting clarity around that. Those were my comments. Thank you. Director Chu.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for making time for us to have a discussion among board members. I think it's so much more valuable than when we just dump our ideas, but we actually get to react to each other so that we can move our own understandings and converge and move forward together. This is really helpful to me. There were a couple things that I forgot to mention, and then a couple things I wanted to react to. I'll be as quick as I can. To the things I forgot, one, we talk so much about the well-being of our students, their health, their mental health, their well-being, et cetera. And I think that we don't spend a lot of time wondering what our instructional approaches, what impact our instructional approaches have on our students' well-being. And that could be anything from how we moderate homework, to how we approach grading, to how we interact with students in a classroom and instructional settings, how we elevate or put down students in the way that instruction is organized, et cetera, et cetera. And whether or not we as a district provide all the supports, trainings, tools, and things for teachers to be able to manage those and explicitly notice those impacts. I would like to see something in an instructional policy that talks about that we will be intentional about understanding our impact on students' well-being through the use of our instructional strategies, and that we will monitor and adjust accordingly. I think that's important. The other thing that I wondered about is when we talked about both our updating our advanced learning, highly capable programming policies, and also updating our special education services policies, we talked about how all of those are rooted fundamentally in our instructional practices policy. And I'm wondering if there's something explicit that we want to call out about how that we have high expectations for all students, that we intend to make sure that all students have opportunities to learn. What is it that joins all of our instructional practices that's fundamental? I think we've got most of it, but I just wonder, because those two policies, we were explicit about it. So that, and then I do think it is worthwhile that we should do a simultaneous review as we do this, identify what other policies might be using this as the root, and figure out if we need to do any work on them, like the grading policy, the special education services policy, and the advanced learning policy. So that, and then I just want to react really quick to a couple of things that were said. Joyce mentioned the policy, she mentioned the list that we use. And every time we come up with a list of making sure that we respect and understand the diversity of attributes, characteristics, and so forth of our population, of our breadth of our students, we talk about, is this the right list? Have we compared it? And it's like we construct the list every time. I think we ought to have a list and that we use, and that is well researched, well thought out, and that we are consistent about, so we don't forget any groups as we go, which applies to, we really should have a sort of standards for writing policy book, or 2 pages or something of like a couple things we take care of. And then Carolyn, in reaction to your comments about like, hey, what do we do with we've overdeveloped one section of this policy, or we've underdeveloped 2 other sections. What is it, and how do we want to handle that? I wonder if some of this material could go into a procedure, because this is a board level policy, and so I wonder if that's the way to solve this. And then Jane, you had made some really thoughtful comments about measurement. And I just wanted to say that I really liked the measurement section here, the data informed by data. And the reason that I liked it is because I think we focus too much on state standards. And we know that the best representation of student learning are those measurements that occur closest to the classroom. And I feel like this policy gives our teachers and our staff and our administrators space to identify how they want to use data to inform whether or not kids are learning things. And I like that. And I think like the questions that you asked could easily be spelled out in the procedure, but I like where this was taken, so.
No, I'll just respond to it. Actually, your initial statement regarding well-being and relating to grading is where I was kind of going at, is that, that you emphasized in the beginning, is that we talked about grading from multiple perspectives of equalizing, as well as of making that we are creating space that is healthy, that we're not overburdening our students. And that is the data that we had discussed in multiple different meetings in various different formats. And so I want to make sure that, yes, we do want to do data, but we also need to make sure that it's a, responsible process, that when we are driving certain things, that we are always keeping tabs of the health of our students. And so I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah. So when you made that comment, that kind of helped clear it up. Thanks.
So at the risk of being too formalistic, but because the benefit is that we can make sure that we have fairness and equity in these conversations, if we have comments and responses to other people during the during the cadence of director discussion, which this has turned into, if we could respect the order of, hand raising, and then just as Director Chu did, sort of take notes as we go, and then on the second or third round, provide that feedback, that would be really great. Although I see you might have lowered your hand, Jane, and so maybe that took that time. Okay, Director Watson.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that I'm supportive of the work and all the effort that went into this. But because the policy is called high quality instruction, and because I am concerned about the amount of attention that the board has spent on academic standards, especially in light of some criticism we got from Dr. Ellsbury, where he said we weren't, as a board, spending enough time on academics. I don't feel, I mean, I know John said, oh, we've been doing that, and, we understand that. And I feel like, yeah, staff does, but I don't feel like, as a board, I've had enough insight into that. And the board is just like been able to know, like, what standards are we using and what do we think about that? And isn't that part of board vision? And I think the community thinks it is. So what I'm just using is this opportunity to say is I think we, as a board, do need more work on relevant academic and social and emotional standards and understanding what those are, what staff are doing, what's up.
Thanks. And on my second or third round, whichever it is, I'll just echo what Director Watson just said. I do think that we should include more robust discussion of what the academic standards are, because that is an important part of the whole child, the whole student, and our community. Again, we've got the opportunity during offline in either emails or commentary in the links that will be sent to us, as well as additional readings to provide further feedback. I think it's been a really great discussion. And I like how, as Director Chu said, we were able to do this round robin where we were able to comment on each other's comments. So thank you to everybody. Okay, I think that's all the hands that are raised for this. Oh, Dr. Aramaki.
Yeah, just to close it out, I just want to say thank you for the conversation. I think this is a really good start. Director Chu talked about this as kind of the root of other policies and procedures, and I think so. I mean, the word I wrote down was this is the anchor for all of the work that we're doing, and so we want to spend a lot of good time on this. This was a really great start to this conversation, and one of the things that we're going to be working on this coming fall is really engaging students and elevating student voice and agency, particularly around instruction. And so we're going to be able to bring some of the themes that we learned from the kids into this conversation as well. But I just wanted to affirm the conversation. They say thank you for this, because I think it's really helpful in us kind of thinking about what we want high quality instruction to look like.
Great, thank you. All right, so we sort of morphed into director discussion. It is close to 6:10 now, which was the ending. If you could move to item 8 slides, which is director discussion, which was scheduled to end at 6:10. So we will adjourn here with 2 minutes. We can either adjourn 2 minutes early or 1 minute early, or if there's a final statement, then I'm happy to take that. But we had really great discussion. I'd like to honor the time of staff and respect that people have circumstances that we should respect and honor to start and end on time. Director Aris, 1.5 minutes.
Thanks. Just a quick suggestion I want to propose to the board here is that, and I brought this up to Dr. Aramaki before, which is to consider creating space. I know we bring students in and to share their experiences from various different schools, but I wonder if we could also take the create some kind of space on a monthly basis, or I don't know if it's once a month or something like that, where we could celebrate the arts. We have amazing arts that our students perform, and I know depending on the schools it varies, and what the focus is and how excellent they are. And I think as we're trying to showcase all the great things our school district provides and does and celebrate. It would be great if we could give them that space during our board where they could, whether it's through Zoom or, online or in person, where they could come and just a snippet of something that they are engaging in so that we can acknowledge their endeavors in that space.
I love that. I'm a huge proponent of the arts and would love to see that integrated myself. Okay, with that, it is 6:10 and we will adjourn exactly on time. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, staff. Thank you, board, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.